Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to welcome you all to the Airtel Economic Times Global Business Summit. The summit comes at a crucial time for the Indian economy. The Modi administration has taken dramatic steps to revive business confidence and quicken the pace of reforms. In the last few weeks, government has enacted a slew of critical measures pushing through crucial ordinances on coal, insurance, and amendment to the Land Acquisition Act. After a long time, stars seems to be in our favor too. Recent fall in crude oil prices has helped push the current account deficit to below 2% of GDP. Prices of other commodities have also fallen. Additionally, the upcoming auction of coal mines should bring greater clarity to a sector which has been hit hard by controversies. Stock markets have already acknowledged these positive changes. Indian markets have been amongst the best performing in 2014. On the 23rd of December last year, a headline in the Times of India said, "Delhi was colder than London that day." We Delhiites have been through a severe winter and eagerly await the onset of spring in February. While respite from cold weather will be welcome, we all really need an Indian summer with an impactful union budget. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here and welcome once again to the Airtel Economic Times Global Business Summit. Thank you.
Honorable Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, colleagues from the Council of Ministers, distinguished guests, friends from the media, I'm very glad to have this opportunity telling you a little bit about how we are thinking about the economy and, of course, the question everybody wants to know about, which is how are we thinking about the budget. So let me spend a few minutes laying out some priorities and perhaps a framework for thinking about both the economy as well as what we're thinking of specifically as far as the budget is concerned. We've all agreed, I think, collectively as a nation, and the decisive mandate that we got in May is demonstration of that, is that we are not satisfied with the growth and the stagnation that we experienced over the last 5 or 6 years. Everybody wants to see this economy growing at 7 to 8% a year, if not even higher. And we want a growth rate that is non-inflationary and is sustainable from an environmental point of view. One of the serious challenges we face, of course, is global climate change and the water shortages that we are likely to face as well. So we want growth that is at 7 to 8% a year, but that is non-inflationary so that we don't enter that boom-bust cycle that we've seen before, and that is environmentally sustainable. At the same time, even as we're growing at that rate, it's very important for us to create those millions and millions of net new jobs in the formal sector that our people need, our young workforce needs. And this is not simply a matter of political necessity. I think all of us honestly believe it is our moral responsibility to be able to make sure that these young people entering this workforce get the good, high-paying, high-quality jobs they need at this stage in their lives. Now, to be able to achieve that, our economy has to be globally competitive. And much of what we're doing is to focus on making this economy much more globally competitive. But I want to add one more thing to this in terms of the economic framework and how we are thinking about the budget, which is that it's not just necessary to be globally competitive, we also have to have an innovation-driven economy as well. Now, as you look at globally competitive thinking and what do we need to do for the economy to be globally competitive, we have to start with the high-quality infrastructure. Now, whether that's roads, highways, ports, all of those sectors need attention, all of those sectors need investment so that we genuinely have the high-quality infrastructure that we need to power our growth forward and to avoid the supply-side bottlenecks. And a very important aspect of infrastructure is the digital infrastructure, and Digital India is a very important element of how we are thinking about infrastructure. Along with having that high-quality infrastructure, we are also looking to establish a predictable, stable, and fair tax regime. And the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Finance Minister have spoken about this multiple times, that we need a tax system that is conducive to being globally competitive and enabling our businesses to flourish and prosper. And along with that, of course, the ease of doing business work that we're doing, so that we take India from being 142nd in the World Bank rankings to being in the top 50. That is another very important element of making our economy globally competitive. But beyond that, we also have to innovate in India. And if we do that, ladies and gentlemen, if we do that we have globally competitive industries, but we also have innovative industries that are exporting around the world, we will have created over the next 5 or 10 years a growth model for India that will be unique, that will be different, and that will really be able to lift our people out of the poverty and the deprivation that they face into a much better world. Achhe din tab zarur aayenge. Thank you very much. Thank you, and enjoy the conference.
First of all, thanks to Economic Times and Airtel for this opportunity. If we have to indeed create an India of which our founding fathers can be proud of, we have to do a certain things. One, we have to create a peaceful and harmonious society. To do that, we have to embrace the democracy that has 4 freedoms as enunciated by President Roosevelt: freedom of speech, freedom of worship or faith, freedom from fear, and freedom from want. If we want to make India economically strong, we have to accept that the only way we can solve the problem of poverty is through creation of jobs by entrepreneurs and industrialists, both Indian and foreign. Therefore, we have to ensure that the friction to business is reduced to zero for these people. We have to realize that just as skills are very, very important, the future of this country depends on our ability to enhance the power of human mind. And that's going to happen only by higher education system. And there we have to ensure that we provide complete autonomy to our higher educational systems. We become more and more open-minded to welcome intellectuals from India and outside and create a platform for exchange with these people. Folks, I don't want to take more time. Thank you very much for this kindness. Thank you.
As we all know, India has phenomenal demographic advantage. That's a double-edged sword. If leveraged properly, that can be a huge advantage which any other country like China and US doesn't have, which India has. The demographical advantage. Most of the population are in the workable population, but it can be a double-edged sword. As I said, if it is not leveraged properly, that might lead to chaos and chaos in the society. It might lead to ill effects in the society. So it's very, very important to have the right kind of skills. If we want to make in India, we really have to upskill people to make India the real skill capital of the world. In the service industry, we have done well. In the IT sector, we have done well. But in the manufacturing segment, we haven't really gone too far in terms of manufacturing because of the lack of skills. So if India has to achieve the fullest of its potential, it's very, very important that we give due respect to the skills. As Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi said, we have to give it due respect to skilling, and we have to put it at the forefront if we really want to, if we really want India to reach the fullest of its potential. See, the biggest trend that we have seen is that even corporates have understood the value of skilling, and they also understood that it's not the state's prerogative to actually invest in skilling. It's also there. It is in the interest of the corporates also to increase investments in skilling. We have seen significant investments by corporates in terms of skilling. They understood the fact that to leverage the fullest of the potential of the companies also, they need human capital. And we stand about 135th in the Human Capital Development Index, which is paltry when compared to the the potential of India. So corporates have started investing significantly in skilling, because they understand that it is a business prerogative for them to increase investments in skilling. So we have seen a government coming together with corporates with increased impetus and skilling, which is really making all the difference. One is employment is one problem, but underemployability is another big challenge that we currently face. It's not just about having a job, but it's also about having a job which fits his potential. So if we really want to, we have a maniacal focus on creating of jobs, which is okay, I mean, good to an extent, but we also need to focus on upskilling the people if we really have to leverage the fullest of the potential. We at Careerista are at the forefront of trying to change the face of India in the skilling sector. Now, what we want to really do is to make people more employable and to leverage the fullest of the potential. We understand there is dearth of quality training resources in India. What we are trying to leverage is to by leveraging technology, we are trying to address that skill gap, and trying to address the skill gap not just in small numbers, but in numbers where we can really make a difference to India as a whole, to make the skill capital of India. So we leverage technology. We leverage, we have the cutting edge e-learning tools, and we work very closely with corporates to understand the requirements. After all, corporates are the ultimate consumers of the skill gap. Skill in this country. The Economic Times Global Business Summit has been a phenomenal platform in bringing together all the stakeholders, be it the government or the corporates, in setting the base of making India the real skill capital of India. So it's been fantastic to meet leaders in the corporates as well as the government. It's important for all the stakeholders to come together, because nothing works in isolation, whether it is a corporate or a government. It doesn't work in isolation. So it's a great platform to be here, and we thoroughly enjoyed it.
On the panel, we have Professor Bhagwati, one of the earliest evangelizers of globalization and, of course, one of the world's foremost theorists of international trade. He was also one of the few public intellectuals to support the then CM Modi and the Gujarat model, thus lending it enormous credibility. Hans Paul Berkner is, of course, the chairman of consulting firm BCG. He wrote about India's prospects in our paper a couple of days back. Our eminent industrialists need no introduction, but they share something in common. They have all been the victims of policy paralysis, which prevailed, or which is said to have prevailed under the previous dispensation. So they can tell us what, if anything, has changed. So, Professor Bhagwati, if I can come to you first. So, Professor Krugman talked about the India-China comparison and why India may not have grown as fast as it could have. So, to ask the question a different way, what can PM Modi do? I mean, in the 4.5 years that he has left, to lift, India to China-like rates of growth?
Thank you very much. I think China certainly is slowing down, but there's no evidence that it's going to slow down to the point where we'll have a free ride and we'll be able to overtake it. These are very big, open questions, and I think one of the things which I think we are going to get now is that, like Maruti, for example, at one time, and the whole system was full of licenses and so on. Where I see the Prime Minister Modi, the real difference is on that side is that he's going to be doing away with all this. Licensing for its own sake to proliferate all kinds of rents and so on. It's disappearing. It had begun under the UPA government at one time. Let's not knock it. In 91, we began to do that. But I think this is something which is going to be reinforced under the new regime for sure. Two, I think definitely we're going to see an accentuation of the opening of markets. And there's nothing like opening of markets to create the competition and the lack of rents, and therefore growth through shaping up people. And I think that it's like what I call the Dracula effect. Expose evil to sunlight, it'll shrivel up and die. The third point which I would say is that unlike the earlier regime, 1991, when we began the reforms, this time around there's more energy, more direction, more determination, more speed. And he's got the world's biggest majority. But I think we'll have a long way to go, establish our credentials, and really earn our new place in the sun. Thank you.
Can I turn next to Mr. Berkner? One of the things which India has not done well is the area of manufacturing, where it's about 15% of GDP, well below that of the typical emerging country. So from the point of view of the foreign investor, what can the government do to bring about a manufacturing, the Make in India revolution, which PM Modi talks about?
I think in order to attract foreign investors, I think we need three things. We need speed. Companies would like to start producing 2-3 years after they've made the decision. And that's very important for them to really ensure that things get done quickly. Mexico is a very good example. I think India can learn from that. Secondly, I think stability. You want to know what the conditions are, and then you want to make sure that the conditions are not changing. So I think, again, very important to ensure that people really find the conditions not changing. And thirdly, I think what they need is flexibility. When you want to expand your production, you want to be able to expand quickly again. If for whatever reasons you have to cut back or even close down, you also want to know that you can do this and it's not being made impossible or extremely costly, like, for example, in France. And I think, these things, speed, stability, and flexibility are core. If the Indian government and the state governments can really ensure that, there will be lots of investors. Rather than sending big delegations from India to the rest of the world, showing wonderful videos and giving speeches and having glossy brochures and talking about how great everything is, let investors, Indian investors, but also foreign investors, really speak about their experience, the good ones, sometimes not so good ones, so that people really get a tangible example of what is happening. And I think with the climate changing, I'm sure there will be more and more great examples and good examples for investors, and then we will see a significant increase in the share of manufacturing in Indian GDP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sunil. I think at the ET Awards you spoke of a blockbuster movie which was about to start. So are we seeing the opening scenes of the movie now, especially after the frenetic?
Yeah, I think the opening scenes have certainly started off very well. I think we really have a very good, fortunate alignment of stars. Europe is sucking air at the moment. Japan is slowing down. China, we've just heard, is going to be possibly in a crisis not too far from now. India is growing at a rapid clip. India is looking to be an exciting place. It's again become a must-be-in country after, I would say, 6 or 7 years. We have the right leadership. They are no more hobbled by the blockages that were seen in the last UPA government. I think they've demonstrated the leadership by coming out with ordinances and ensured that the obstinate obstructionism of the opposition is dealt with very decisively. And finally, as an entrepreneur, as a person who runs a company, what are the ingredients of success? A hardworking government, and this government is certainly one of the most hardworking government. It's a government which is committed for the benefit of nation, not one segment of society, not one set of business players. It really wants to have an even-handed delivery of all policies in a very transparent and a fair manner. Next 5, 7, 10 years truly belong to India, and all of us want to partake, participate, and contribute in our own way.
If I can come to Anajit Singh, I mean, he's been in a sector where, increasing FDI to 49% was first promised 10 years ago by Mr. Chidambaram. It's just happened. What is your take? I mean, will foreign investors rely on, depend on ordinance to come in to increase their stake, or will they wait for Parliament to pass it into law?
I think the government should be commended for going the ordinance route after being stalled day after day, week after week. And if that's the way we have to do business, that's the way we have to do business. So that's one. FDI is not necessarily the only precursor to a retake-off of the insurance industry. So we need a runway, we need a period of time, we need to know that the rules of the game will not change for 3 years or 5 years, or at least these set of rules will not change. Some may not. Government should come out clear. This is not manufacturing. This is not industrial business. Insurance may be an industry, but we have to be clear, are we following the employment model which has given way to bank assurance, for example? Or are we encouraging insurance companies to make larger profits? Shareholder profits are only 5%. 95% belong to policyholders. And it is totally clear everywhere else in the world that profits earned from insurance companies, apart from that 5%, are all reinvested back into the economy, and particularly for long-term infrastructure development and the like. And there are very stringent norms about where and how much we can invest our surpluses, if you will. So to punish the insurance industry by a tax regime which is unfavorable or ranked at par with industry at large is not making the rules of the game clear. We must understand it's the second largest employer in the country. And I think that has to be given some attention as well.
May I ask Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw to speak about what she thinks should be the three or four big priorities for the Modi government?
Well, I think most people have really touched upon the ease of doing business and the speed of doing business. But to do all of this, I think you need to really focus on regulatory clarity and regulatory simplification. I know that our sector, the biotech sector, which is a highly and over-regulated sector, has suffered extensively from very complex regulations which need to be simplified. I know that we have had many, many challenges in terms of dealing with various issues of regulations, multi-ministerial conflicts on regulating our sector and so on and so forth. So I think this is a very exciting time because for the first time I see that there is a can-do energy within the government to fix some of these issues. And at least from the few interactions that I have had, I am extremely encouraged that there is a will